Hi, it's me again, Dmitry Demishev, your coach in the world of dispatching. We've reached an advanced module of our training. You can already proudly call yourself a dispatcher. Your level of knowledge is quite developed at this point. Now it's time to grow to the title of a professional dispatcher. A key stage of growth is in-depth knowledge of the freight market and its analysis tools, as well as professional negotiating and networking skills. In this module, I will provide practical tools and useful information to support them. Now, it's especially important to take notes of every insight, every tool and its explanation, so that you can simply open a notebook and repeat what I'm going to teach you today. So, let's get going. Transportation company objectives. In the third module, when we talked about planning, we determined that the most important first step to planning is to identify the goals of the transportation company and each individual truck driver. If you remember, we distinguished between two basic types of goals. The first one was financial goals. They are calculated in miles and dollars, and there are three main indicators. Total mileage, which is the total number of miles traveled by the truck, gross rate, the total income the truck generated, and rate per mile, how much money the truck earned for each mile traveled. This one determines the margin of the trucking company because each mile costs money, driver's salary, fuel, and so on. The second type of goal is operational. These can include the areas and states in which the trucking company operates, the lengths of the load that the driver prefers. For example, maybe he prefers short one-day trips of up to 700 miles, or two-day trips of 1000 miles or more, or coast-to-coast loads that travel through the whole country, such as Los Angeles to New York, which is about 2800 miles. That's a load for the whole week, from Monday through Friday. By the way, working as a dispatcher for a carrier that runs coast-to-coast loads is quite awesome. You put in 1 day of hard work, find the best load, and then you don't need to search for any more loads for this truck for the whole week. Pretty sweet, right? What else can be included in operational goals? Such factors as driver's home time, so how often you need to bring a driver back home, load weight restrictions, commodity restrictions. For example, some drivers will not transport pork or alcohol for religious or cultural reasons, and so on. Based on these parameters provided to you by the carrier at the beginning of the week, a dispatcher sets himself a weekly task for each truck. This task should be quite simple and clear, so you can look at it quickly and refresh your memory when you switch from one truck to another. It can be written out on a sheet of paper, printed out, hung up in your workspace, or stored in an electronic document. An example of such a plan could be as follows. A weekly plan, let's say driver Jason, truck number 5502, dry van, location on Monday, Chicago, Illinois, ready to go anytime, anywhere. Weekly miles should be above 2,500, weekly minimum gross $6,500, average rate per mile should be above 2.5. Maximum weight 44,000 pounds and has to come back to Chicago next Monday. Based on this task, a dispatcher will typically build an approximate route plan. Of course, as you sit down and start calling on loads, that plan may change, because, a really nice load might pop up in another unplanned area, or the driver could get held up at a delivery and lose a day and the plan goes to waste. It's normal in logistics when all the plans fall apart. That's why we learn how to make them, so you can assess the situation at any time without any panic and adjust your plan to account for any unforeseen occurrences. A view at the freight market. So, in order to start creating a plan, let's start by looking at a map of the United States. America is made up of 50 states, and when a carrier wants to say that he drives all over the country, he often says, "I run all 48 states." That's because Hawaii and Alaska are not part of the trucking area. Hawaii is an island, and to get to Alaska you first have to drive through all of Canada. Apart from states, in trucking we also divide the entire country into zones. There are 5 key zones that we identify: Northeast, Southeast, Midwest, Southwest, and West. Americans are a bit strange with their geography. For instance, Ohio State, which is right here in the east, is actually located in a zone called Midwest. Makes no sense to me, but you'll get used to it pretty quickly. The United States can also be divided into smaller zip zones. A zip code is a 5-digit postal code. Each city and town has its own zip code, and the first digit of that zip code is responsible for a wide area that may include several states or parts of states at once. When searching for a load or posting a truck on a load board, you can designate a movement zone using one of the 10 zip zones instead of having to write out each individual state. The division of these zones can be found by downloading the appendix to this lesson. The state and zip zones are good for a general understanding of how the truck moves. We can use them to plot a route when we plan the number of miles. For example, we can say that we will send our driver from Chicago first down to Georgia, then to New Jersey. From there we'll take him back to Midwest on the way home to zone Z4. And from there we will book him a short load back to Chicago. That's already a pretty good plan. That plan would get the driver anywhere between 2,500 to 3,000 miles, which is great for 1 week. However, our planning doesn't end there. It's not enough to just decide on states. The shipment of goods doesn't happen all over the state at the same time. There are places in a certain state where it's easy to find loads from, and then there are places where freight is scarce, and you have to deadhead, drive empty, for a long time to get to the right load. Take Texas, for example, which is the largest state by area. East of Texas is one of the key transportation areas in the United States. There's the city of Dallas, and just south of that is a major international port in Houston. Sending a truck to one of these cities is usually a good idea. Freight is shipped from these points throughout the country year-round. However, central and western Texas is a desert area. Sending a truck to San Angelo, which is geographically in the heart of Texas, will make it difficult to find loads, and you will very likely have to move the truck empty for hundreds of miles. So, how do you identify the right areas within the state? Consider the following map, which is also available for download in the appendix of this lesson. Each US state has key market areas. These areas represent a major city, an economic or manufacturing center, and its area, a number of small towns that are close to it and that benefit from their geographic location. The bigger the city, the more it trades with other cities, the more demand it has for trucking. It all makes sense. Every state has a certain number of such areas. For example, Texas has a lot of them. Fort Worth, Dallas, Houston, Austin, San Antonio, McAllen, Laredo, El Paso. In New Mexico, there's only one, Albuquerque, home of the great chemist Walter White from Breaking Bad. And in Nevada, for example, there are two, Reno and Las Vegas. Of all the areas on the map, we can distinguish the main ones. Transportation hubs, these are the junctions of several modes of transportation, such as air, rail, and so on, working together to serve transit, local, and urban traffic. So, major transportation hubs are Boston, Massachusetts, Cleveland, Ohio, Chicago, Illinois, Minneapolis, Minnesota, Kansas City, Kansas, St. Louis, Missouri, Dallas, Texas, Houston, Texas, and San Francisco, California. Next, major logistics centers, which include the highest number of distribution facilities, are Phoenix, Arizona, Denver, Colorado, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, Little Rock, Arkansas, Nashville, Tennessee, Columbus, Ohio, and Detroit, Michigan. Then, cities with key international ports for import and export. These are New York City, State of New York, New Jersey, State of New Jersey, Baltimore, Maryland, Norfolk, Virginia, Charleston, South Carolina, Savannah, Georgia, Jacksonville, Florida, Miami, Florida, Mobile, Alabama, New Orleans, Louisiana, once again Houston, Texas, Los Angeles, California, as well as Oakland, California, and Seattle, Washington. And finally, the so-called inland ports. These are Stockton, California, Inland Empire, California, once again Fort Worth, Texas, Memphis, Tennessee, St. Louis, Missouri, Kansas City, Kansas, Chicago, Illinois, Columbus, Ohio, Charlotte, North Carolina, and Atlanta, Georgia. Key market areas are usually connected between one another by the key transportation corridors of the country, the highway system. This highway system is called interstate. Each highway has its own number. For example, I-95 runs all along the East Coast, and I-5 runs all along the West Coast. Memorizing all the key cities in each state is a long and painful task, especially since trucking activity will vary from zone to zone at different times of the year. To get started, you can use one simple rule of thumb. Looking at each available load, you will need to go into the map and input the city to which it's headed. The first thing to look is whether the unloading point is near a major city. If the unloading point is close to the water, see how far away the nearest major port is. This will give you an initial idea of how difficult or easy it will be to get out of that city when looking for your next load. Your next step will of course be to log back into the load board and check for loads coming out of that city, the destination point of your previous load. A quick check of the demand for your next move. At this point, deadhead settings will come in very handy. Perhaps there is nothing within a 30-mile radius, but you see that a major city is only 60 miles away. Well, in that case, increase your deadhead and you'll most likely see many more options. Hello! We're starting to analyze the market, and the first thing we will touch upon are the tools of macro analysis. We already know that in order to be certain that we'll be able to get a truck out of an area within a state, we should pick areas as close as possible to major cities, ports, and transportation hubs. However, when we have a truck to load, we need to decide on an overall direction, that is, to choose the state to which we'll send those trucks. Before we go on one of the load boards and start looking for available freight, we can check the Bureau of Transportation and Statistics and look at freight flows by state. Follow the link attached to this lesson to the bts.gov website to the freight flow by state page. Here we can select the state we're interested in and look at the statistics of inbound and outbound shipments. This way we will know how much each state trades with the other states, which will give us an idea of which states will be the easiest to get the truck out at a good price. Alright, so I've logged into the freight flows by state page of the Bureau of Transportation Statistics website, and we have a map here and we have a couple parameters to put in. It's actually quite straightforward. Really, when you log in, all the parameters are already put in for you. So we have the state. By default is choosing the state of Alabama, but we'll be choosing different states. Let's just start with Alabama for now. For the year, the latest year available is 2021, so that's the one we're choosing. For the measure, we're keeping the current value in millions of dollars. You can later play around with other values if you want. And for the type, we just keep all. But then once again, if you want to play around with it, you can check for domestic, you can check for export and import. But for our purposes, we're just going to keep type of freight all. And so here we go. We move on to the map. We have chosen Alabama. Alabama is right here. Oops. There you go. Okay, so we've chosen Alabama. It's right here. And by the color, so the darker the color, the more the state of Alabama trades with the state. So we see the darkest one is Georgia. It has the current value. So Georgia is trading the most with Alabama, and we also see Florida, Mississippi, Tennessee. So it makes sense that the bordering states are the ones that Alabama trades with the most, but if we move a little bit further, we can see that also Alabama trades a lot with Texas and with California. So that gives us an idea. If we have a truck in Alabama, it's most likely that you will be able to find a higher number of loads going out to those states. And then we can choose a different state. I don't know, let's go for Colorado, for example. As you can see, the map changed. So now we're here in Colorado, and Colorado does trade a lot with its bordering states. It trades a lot with Wyoming, as well as Utah, Nebraska, and Kansas. But it actually trades the most with California, Texas, and it trades a lot with Illinois. So that's about it. Another great free tool for understanding the market is DAT trend lines. The link is attached to this lesson. DAT is a major player in the market. The company earns money not only from the load board but also from other logistics-related products. One of them is collecting and selling data for market analysis. You can buy a whole range of analysis tools from DAT that vary in price. But a novice dispatcher doesn't need to spend too much money on these products. What we'll present in this lesson will be sufficient. Okay, here we are on the DAT Trendlines website. We're on the main page. And the first thing we see here is a weekly snapshot by the numbers. So these are percentage changes in demand and supply for transportation over periods of time. And we have the weekly period of time, monthly period of time, and a yearly period of time. So let's look at the monthly period. So this is statistics between April 2023 and May 2023. First thing we see is spot load posts plus 29.4%. So this means that there are pretty much 30% more loads available on the market in May 2023 than in April 2023. And then we see spot truck posts, which grew by 8.6%. So actually the number of trucks available also increased. But the number of loads increased by 30%, the number of trucks increased by 9%, which indicates that actually the demand for transportation grew faster than the supply. Right? There are more loads on the market, but there are not as many more trucks available on the market. So this statistics usually means that the rates, the prices for transportation have increased between the months of April and the months of May, just because of the increase of the demand. And then we see for each type of equipment, for driver and flatbed and reefer, load to truck ratio. So load to truck ratio is essentially the ratio of demand, and the demand for transportation went up by pretty much almost 32% for dry van. And then the spot rates, so average prices, actually haven't increased, even though the demand became higher. This is normal. Usually it takes a bit of time for the prices to adjust to the changes in demand and supply. So it would be expected that the prices would grow over time if this number of demand remains higher than the supply. And we have the same for the flatbed. So actually for the flatbed, the load to truck ratio didn't increase. It went down a little bit, and we see that the rates also went down, but not so much. So flatbed pretty much stayed at the same level. And then for the reefer, we once again saw a higher increase, 34% in the load to truck ratio, but a very small increase in rates. And then in the end, we have the fuel prices. So the fuel prices have been going down little by little, which also has an effect on the rates. When fuel prices go up, the rates go up slightly, and when they go down, the rates also go down. So you can check out the statistics and follow it weekly. If you log into DAT Trendlines every week, you'll be able to check the weekly statistics, which will give you an understanding of how much you can negotiate with brokers. So let's say you're always running the same lane, and you usually, your driver usually runs it for $1,000, but then you see a very big spike in the number of load posts and very big spike in load to truck ratio. And this could mean for you that for the next week, you can try and negotiate a higher rate with the brokers for the same lane. So maybe instead of 1,000, you ask them for 1,200 or 1,300, and most likely they will have to provide it to you, just because there's not so many other trucks that can take this load for the same price. So if you follow these statistics, you'll have a better understanding of the market. If we scroll down, we see the next point, which is national spot rates. So these are actually nationwide, countrywide averages for each of the three key types of equipment. So in June 2023, the average rate for a drive-in is $2.09. So this is a rate per mile. So for each mile traveled, truckers have gotten $2.09 on average. For flatbeds, it's $2.66 per mile, and for reefers, it's $2.48 per mile. Once again, this statistics updates monthly, so you should be going on DAT trend lines, and you should be checking the statistics just to understand where the market is at right now. Let's see what else is available here. Fuel prices. You can check out the percentage change, and this is average fuel price per gallon in the US right now, which is $3.80. If we go back up to our trends, snapshot by the numbers, here where it says view trends, you can also see a demand and capacity map for each type of equipment, for dry van, flatbed, and reefer, and you can see a national rates map once again for each type of equipment. So let's choose flatbeds. Let's take a look at flatbed demand and capacity map. So this is again load to truck ratio. Load to truck ratio is a very important indicator. It explains how much demand there is for transportation, and it explains how the pricing for transportation is formed. So on this map, we have all our states, and the darker the color gets, the higher load to truck ratio there is, meaning higher demand for transportation with this specific type of equipment, flatbed. So we can see the darkest colors on this map are here on the southeast: Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Arkansas, Oklahoma. All of these states will pay a rate above market average coming out of this state. Also South Carolina and a few other states in the north, Idaho, Oregon. There's not enough flatbed trucks in this area, so if you have a truck in Oregon or Idaho, you can expect a higher than average rate. And also Maine. I guess there's just there's usually not too many loads coming out of Maine. It's a small place, not much production, but I guess there's just not enough flatbed trucks to keep up with the demand. So you can look at this map. It also gets updated on a monthly basis, and you can look at this map for each type of equipment. And then for flatbeds, another thing we can look at is national flatbed rates. So this is going to be another map, but it's just going to show average rate per mile for each of the 5 zones of the US. So for flatbeds at the moment, Midwest area and Southeast area, Southeast area are paying the most, meaning that coming out of these areas, you can expect a rate around $2.79, and then the western part of the US has the lowest demand for trucking in general, and the lowest demand for flatbeds right now. So coming out of the west, you will get a lower rate of around $2.35 per mile. So you can get a general idea. Coming from southeast to the west, you can expect a higher rate, but coming back from the west to the southeast, you can expect a lower rate. Okay, after looking at DAT trend lines, I logged back into the DAT load board. Actually, you will notice that this one looks a little bit different. For previous demonstrations, I was using DAT Tracker's Edge, and now I'm using DAT Power. And this subscription is slightly more expensive, but I'm just going to use it because it has more tools, and I want to show you all the set of tools that DAT has to offer. Some of these tools will be available for you, some not, depending on what subscription you buy and how much money you'll be paying monthly for the load board. So first thing, actually, I want to go to search loads, and let's just do a quick search here. I don't know, drive-in, doesn't matter, Atlanta, Georgia, for example. Very quick search. So first thing that's available to us, let's say, for example, we're looking at this load over here. We don't know the rate. The broker hasn't posted his rate. We can click on the load and we get the broker to carry a spot. So this is a spot rate or an average rate based on historical statistics for the past 30 days, I believe. I'm not sure, it could be 90 days actually, but historically this lane has been paying $2.21 per mile, and even here we can see that should be paying a minimum of $2.09 and a maximum of $2.39 per mile. So already inside of the load board, while you're looking for loads, you can use this broker to carrier spot to get a general idea of how much this load should be paying, or at least how much this load has been paying in the past. Of course, this statistics is taken from historical value, so if in the past months they've been paying $2.21, it doesn't mean that today they're going to be paying $2.21. So the reality might be quite different, but this could be a foundation, a starting point for you to understand how much this load could be paying. Actually, it's very good to pair this with the DAT trend lines. If you go see here and see the average rate has been $2.21, you can go back to DAT trend lines, see that percentage change over the week or over the months, and understand, okay, so they've been paying $2.21, but the market has actually decreased, and it means I might be looking at a lower rate. Or on the contrary, they've been paying $2.21, but the market has increased, so actually I should be asking for more than $2.21. I should probably be asking somewhere in the higher range of $2.39 per mile or more. It's very good to use this broker to carrier spot while looking at DAT trend lines to see some trends and to understand how close to this value you should be aiming for. Okay, this is available in any load search. Any load that I look for, I can always check out the broker to carrier spot for any lane. But I'm just leaving the search loads, going back to my load board. So I have this little briefcase here, and this is called tools, and this is these are the tools available with paid subscription of DAT. So I'll go through each one of these. First one is lane makers. Let's click on it. This is a very interesting tool. Oh, you see they're actually offering me Lane Makers Premium. I'm not even 100% sure what's included in the premium, but you can go and check it out for yourself, see how much it costs, see if it's worth it. But this is a great tool, especially when you're just starting to work with a carrier, and actually it allows you to see what brokers have the most amounts of loads for your carrier. So here, report type, I have carrier activity. It's only available to me because we're actually also brokers, so we buy broker DAT accounts, but for normal carriers it will usually just show broker activity, and then it includes full or partial. Doesn't matter for me, I'm just going to use both. So let's say I got a new carrier. He is a flatbed, for example, and he's based in, let's say, Richmond, Virginia. So I got this carrier, he's relatively new, he wants some loads from Richmond, Virginia. I can go and click search here, and this will actually show me the brokers that have the most load postings out of Richmond, Virginia in the past months. So as you can see, the biggest one is DNL Transport, 22,000 load postings for flatbed out of Richmond, Virginia in the past month. So that already gives me a clear understanding. Okay, the first broker I have to set up is DNL Transport, and I'm probably going to book a lot of loads with them, so I better make good relationship with them for that carrier. And then I can see some other brokers. Total Quality Logistics, as you can see already, only 2,700 compared to 22,000. So DNL is definitely the leader in Richmond, Virginia, but some other brokers I should be setting up my carrier with is Total Quality Logistics, King of Freight LLC, GLM, Berry Trucking, Tennessee Steel Haulers, R&R, etc., etc., etc. So it gives us, I don't know how many, about a dozen brokers that have the most loads coming out of this specific city of Richmond, Virginia. Now, let's say this same carrier out of Richmond, Virginia tells me, hey, you know what, I only want to travel down to North Carolina or up to New Jersey, for example. Okay, origin, Richmond, Virginia, destination, North Carolina. Okay, search. Now this will show me the brokers that had the most load from Richmond going specifically to North Carolina. You see, not even Interesting. DNL, that the one that had the most load postings, is not even here. So actually this lets us understand that DNL has a lot of loads coming out of Richmond, Virginia for flatbed, but not going to North Carolina. If we want to go to North Carolina, we have to set up with Tennessee steel haulers. So I guess a lot of steel is coming out from Virginia down to North Carolina, and then JLM, IRL, Total Quality Logistics, etc., etc. So the brokers actually have changed depending on the destination. And then if he says he wants to go to North Carolina or New Jersey, we'll go ahead, do the same for New Jersey. You see Tennessee steel haulers, the one that was the top one going to North Carolina, is actually not here anymore. Now Total Quality Logistics is the biggest broker that ships loads from Richmond, Virginia to New Jersey. And then you have the other brokers as well. So this is a fantastic tool to understand what brokers to set up with, what brokers to set up your carrier with, especially if you have a new carrier. Go to Lane Makers, check out the brokers, do some setups, and immediately start building relationships with those brokers. Your carriers will really appreciate it, especially if they're new carriers. They're not set up with many brokers yet. They haven't done much business in the past. You as a dispatcher can help them out, help them make their first money, and keep this customer for a really long time. They'll stay with you, they'll stick with you, they'll not want to go to any other dispatcher. All right, Lane Makers, fantastic tool. Oops, my Mac will die soon. So the next one is Market Conditions. Let's click on this. And Market Condition Index is pretty much, let me just click somewhere. Market Condition Index is pretty much just an index for a load to truck ratio. So once again, tight capacity, hot, it will be shown in red. Those are the areas with the highest load to truck ratio. And then on the contrary, the blue ones are the areas with the least load to truck, with the smallest load to truck ratio. So we can choose by equipment, van, flat, or reefer, and here it's given us by the key market area, but we can actually just choose, let's say, by state, and we can even use the time frame, prior business days, current, even has a 7-day forecast, or prior 7 days, prior 30 days. Let's choose current, and let's just apply this filter here. Let's see if it loads. There you go. So we can see in red, hot states with the highest load to truck ratio for dry van. In blue, colder, those have the lowest load to truck ratio. So this gives us a pretty good indication. If my truck is in Georgia and I want to go to a cold state like Nebraska, they're going to be paying me a very high rate. And on the contrary, if I'm going from a cold state to a hot state, from Nebraska to Georgia, I can expect a rate that's below general market average. So you can play around with this. You can see by area, by market area. Market area is actually very interesting because rather than looking at states as a whole, we can look specific market areas and see, because in a certain state there could be hot zones and there could be cold zones. Look at Texas. So Texas has cold zones. East of Texas is always hot. This is Dallas area, this is Houston area, they're always hot. And then other areas like this big one is a desert, so there's usually no loads here, and this is shown to us by the market index. Okay, let's move away from the market condition index and look what else is available to us in these tools. So we looked at Lane Makers, we look at market conditions. Here's a quick rate search. This is actually a very, very simple tool. We just choose an equipment, let's say for example reefer, and then we choose a lane, Miami, Florida to, I don't know, Atlanta, Georgia, for example. And then we click search and we get our average rate. So average rate for reefer on this lane is $1.84, and it ranges from $1.49 to $2.12. And that's $1,222 per trip. And we can actually, this is broker to carrier spot, we can actually see shipper to carrier contract. So we see that the contract rate is actually relatively higher. It's $1,667 when a carrier gets the load directly from the shipper, and it's only $1,222 when you get the same load from the broker. So very simple tool. This is the same thing as what's available to you when you search for loads. But if you don't want to go and do a full search, you can just very quickly check the lane. That's why it's called a quick rate search. Okay, so then we have the trend lines. We already seen that. That's available to us. DAT directory. That's just a directory where you can search companies. I'm not going to click on it now, but you can search by MC number or by company name, by phone number, and you can search any carrier or any broker. Okay, so all of the tools are not really important to us. My subscription allows me to search for trucks, so I can actually go and search for loads and then go and search for trucks and kind of compare that statistics. That's going to be the same statistics as the load to truck ratio that we've already seen. Okay, so DAT is not the only load board that collects data and provides analysis tools. Actually, the next module, module 6, is going to be all about load boards and how to get subscribed to them. The two main competitors of DAT are Truckstop and 123 load boards. Truckstop provides a very similar set of tools to DAT. You can check average rates, load to truck ratio, rate trends. I'm not going to stop and show it to you. It's very similar to DAT. You'll have no problem using it. Also, it's a bit tricky to get for a beginner dispatcher unless your employer provides an account for you. But what I do want to show you today is 123 load boards and the tools it provides, because it's the easiest load board to get for a beginner dispatcher. It's most likely you will have a 123 load board account even before you have a DAT account, so you'll most likely have access to it. And let's see what tools are available here. So I'm logged into my account. So this is how my dashboard looks. Here on the left I have the menu. I have find loads. It's essentially the exact same thing as load search on DAT. You'll be able to use it, no problem. I have load availability here. So it's called the density list. This is actually the exact same thing we saw on the DAT Tracker's Edge. If you remember the in and out ratio, so this is the same here. Inbound will be the in and outbound will be the out. But 123 load board also provides us information on the intrastate loads, so the loads inside the states. So I can scroll and it provides me all the states, and then I can also sort it by trailer type and by specific region as well. It's not something DOT allows me to do. And then we also have the density map. This is very similar to the one we saw on the DAT again. This one shows the load to truck ratio, except that the color coding is different. So here green means high, loads are available. Medium is orange, means loads are slightly limited. And then red, low, loads are limited. And then once again, I can just go to each state and it will show me the in and out ratio. Very similar to DAT. So if you don't have a DAT account yet, you'll be able to get 123 load board account very easily after you watch module 6. Then you'll have all these tools available to you. Another thing I want to show you is the load planner over here. This is something unique to the 123 load board. So actually here I can add a truck and I can choose my equipment, van, reefer, flatbed. Let's just go with van. And I can enter miles per gallon, so I can enter the fuel consumption of the truck, and it will show me not just the total rates, but also the profits after the fuel. So if you talk to your driver, you can get the mileage, the fuel consumption that his truck gets, and you'll be able to provide that statistics for them if they want. So I'm just going to save this truck here quickly. And this is actually going to build a route plan for me. So this is a great tool for beginners. Let's see how it works. Where is your truck located? So I can put in a date. Okay, let's just say like today. Origin point. Let's say Indianapolis, for example. We'll go for Indiana this time. Here you go, Indianapolis, Indiana. Okay. And then where would you like to be in a few days? I can input a date. If we started on Wednesday, let's say we have Wednesday to Wednesday a full week. And then destination, I can choose, let's say we're loading this truck for a week, and then we need to bring it back to Indianapolis. There you go. Okay, so this is supposed to give us a route plan for a week worth of work for a truck coming out of Indianapolis and that needs to come back to Indianapolis. Here, states served, I can choose specific states where this carrier operates. If I have limits, for now I'm just going to leave it, I'm going to leave it, you know, all the states. So let's see how this works. Oh yeah, I can choose certain regions. I'm not going to do that now. Let's give it full freedom and let's see what kind of route plan it creates for us. So load size here, I can only choose full loads. This will not help me with partial load consolidation. Maximum lengths, of course, 53 feet. Maximum weight, let's just go whatever, 45,000 pounds. Maximum posting age. Okay, so if I want to see only recent loads, then I can choose 30 minutes or 1 hour, or if I don't really care, I can choose 8 hours. So it will be choosing amongst loads that have been posted no later than 8 hours ago. And then maximum loads per trip. This also depends on my carrier. Maybe he's okay to do 1 load every day, or maybe he wants to only go out and come back. So this way I will choose maximum loads per trip too. So I can only do 1 load out, 1 load in. I'm just going to keep it whatever. I mean, 5 loads is doable in 1 week, so I'm just going to put 5. Radius limits, this is going to be my deadhead. Maximum deadhead is going to be 100 miles. Okay, I'm okay with that. And load mile range, I can also play around with that. I don't know if my carrier, for example, only wants to do 1 day load. Well, let's choose it. Let's say my carrier only wants to do 1 day loads. And this way I know that he can do maximum 750 miles, or let's even say maybe he can do maximum, oops, it's not very convenient to use. Let's say he only does maximum 750, wow, this doesn't let me choose. He only does maximum 650 miles, there you go, I hope it works, yeah. Maximum 650 miles, so in the load mile range I'm putting a maximum of 650 miles. Let's just do here maximum loads per trip. 10, because anyway the largest or the longest load it will show me is actually 650 miles. And then I can either do the leg view and choose each load individually, or I can do a trip view. So this will actually build a whole trip for me. Okay, let's check what we've input. 1 week. Let's find trips. So now this is analyzing hundreds of thousands of possible routes, or actually more than 1 million possible routes, and supposedly right now is going to present me an optimal route plan for my truck, for my dry van that's starting on Wednesday and needs to come back to the same place, Indianapolis, Indiana, on Wednesday. Wow, this is taking very long to analyze. Okay, there you go. So what did it provide? This trip has 7 loads. Wow. Mileage 2,541 miles. The total deadhead is 418. Revenue per day $1,192. Fuel cost per day $455. So that's taken from my mile per gallon fuel consumption. And total cost of tolls per day is $11. So the profit per day is $725. It's actually not so bad. Let's see what are the loads. There you go. So it starts with the first one, point A to point B. It took me from Indiana to Kentucky, and then from Indiana to Alabama. Well, I guess I had to I guess I went down to Kentucky, but then had to deadhead back to Indiana a little bit, and then it took me to Alabama, from Alabama to Kentucky, Ohio to Virginia, Virginia to Georgia, Georgia to Georgia, Georgia back to Indianapolis. So this actually did pretty well. I don't know in reality how this would work out. Obviously it hasn't booked these loads for me, but it provided me the company, so the brokers that have these loads, and now I can call these brokers. You see here, call the company directly to confirm availability and rate. So based on this route plan, I can start calling brokers and then negotiating. Maybe I will even be able to negotiate more than the load board provided me, because for each load I can confirm my rate. So I can actually tell them like, hey, you told me that I can book this load for $1,000, but actually I got $1,100. So then it will recalculate my daily profits. There you go. It will look for loads for you. It will make a route plan for you. I think this is a fantastic tool. If I were you, I would play around with it a little bit, see how to use it to the full potential, and utilize it in my day-to-day operations. So that's the load planner. What else do we have here on the 1 to 3 load boards? My loads, post trucks, rate check. Rate check is going to be the same as the quick rate lookup we just saw on DAT, so I can just input the pickup location, delivery location. It will give me average rates. Profit calculator, once again, I can input the mileage, how much I get per gallon, toll cost, even dispatch fee is available here. So you can really use this 1 to 3 load board to provide some additional value for your carrier. You can, when you start working with a new customer, you can tell them, hey, I not only do dispatching, but I'll also calculate your profitability. So you can input your dispatch fee here. Let's say you take 4%. If you check with him how many miles per gallon his truck makes, you can not only book loads for him, but actually calculate his profits. So that's extremely convenient. And then we have a mileage calculator. So that's also a very good tool if you're not satisfied with Google Maps, or you can double check your maps. You can go here and actually input an exact address. Not necessarily, you can just put a city. Let's just try, I don't know, Atlanta, Georgia, for example, going to Miami, Florida. Miami, Florida, there you go, calculate. So you can double check your mileage here and actually total toll cost. So there are many questions about how to calculate tolls. There you go, you can use 1 to 3 load board to calculate tolls. And the reason you can double check this, because it uses Google Map for interactive maps, but it also uses PC Miller, which is a GPS map that's made specifically for truckers. So the routes in this map will be specific for trucks, and if there are some roads that a 18-wheeler truck cannot go to, Google Maps will not show that to you, but PC Miller will. So this is actually a great tool to double check your routes, your mileage, and your toll cost. And then once again, they included the profit calculator in here as well, so you can also do the profit calculations. Here's what you get with a 1 to 3 load board subscription. The tools are fantastic, and in the next module I'll show you how to get subscriptions to all these load boards. Alright, these are all the analysis tools you will need in your work. Once you've taken time to analyze the market, your next step is pretty straightforward. You log into a load board, search for loads, call brokers, compare prices, negotiate, and book. If all of this seemed a bit complicated at a first glance, do not be alarmed. In reality, many carriers will give you very specific parameters on where they want their trucks to go. Analysis is needed for working with carriers who give you the freedom to choose their own routes and who rely on you being a professional who knows how to use the available tools. If at any point of your career you're confused and don't know where to send your truck to make the highest profit, or you're worried about sending a truck somewhere and not being able to get it out of there, go back to your notes from this module and you'll find all the answers. Now let's consider several approaches to load selection. This is a new topic. If you're taking notes, start a new chapter. The first approach is booking hot loads. This approach entails looking for last-minute loads and getting a top rate because of the urgency. Brokers, just like dispatchers, work all day long to make sure that cargo is shipped and that they make money from it. Their goals are much the same as those of the dispatcher, although we're on the opposite teams of the game. The broker needs to sell the load as cheap as possible, and the dispatcher needs to get the highest possible price. This is the main difference between us. But no matter who wins the game and gets the desired rate, the load must be picked up at the appointment time. If the broker fails to sell the load and time is running out, or maybe if somebody booked his load and then cancelled at the last minute, the load becomes hot. At these moments, the broker needs to find a carrier at any cost. And the dispatchers who can determine this will gladly use it and can ask for higher rates. How do you determine a hot load? It's very simple. Call the broker and find out the pickup appointment time. Do this with multiple loads, write down appointment times and monitor the board to see which of those have not been removed from the board over time. If you see that the broker is running out of time and your truck is close by, you found a hot load. Congratulations, you have a huge bargaining advantage and can potentially make good money on this shipment. A lot of smaller carriers use this approach, especially owner-operators who have nowhere to hurry. They're willing to sit and wait for a good opportunity. In single cases, you can make good money on this, but companies who rely on this method too much often lose out sooner or later. They don't build close relationships with brokers, but take advantage of their difficult situation. Moreover, having waited until late, there's always a chance of not finding such a hot load and being left with nothing. Use this approach with care and only if your carrier is on board to play this game. The second approach is looking for dedicated lanes. In essence, dedicated lanes are similar to contract freight. In this case, you identify a broker who has a lane that needs to be shipped repetitively at a certain interval, for example, once a week. We negotiate prices with the broker in advance and then book the shipment for several weeks in advance. Usually, no additional contracts are required for this. The broker just provides rate confirmations for all of our loads. This approach is especially helpful when you need to bring the driver home every weekend or maybe get him out of his home every Monday. In order to find a dedicated lane, you just need to communicate with the broker after a successful delivery and ask them about the possibility of booking the same load up front for the next couple of weeks, months, or even for the whole season. For example, I had a carrier that only wanted to move from Los Angeles, California to Portland, Oregon. There and back, every week. After a while of working with this carrier, I was able to pre-book a dedicated lane that left from Los Angeles to Portland every Monday, and another lane that left from Portland to Los Angeles every Wednesday. This way, I had the whole week booked for the carrier at a stable price for months. I barely had to do any work for this carrier and simply made my commission for organizing this schedule. The third approach we will consider is called double load or 2-1. This method is often used when the truck is in a bad zone and no matter where we go, we still get a low rate. In this case, we first find a second high-paying load from another zone for another day, and then find a load that will bring us as close to that second one as possible. So in this way, we're booking two loads at once, double load. We first book the second load and then the first one, hence the name 2-1. And the last approach I would like to talk to you about is partial load consolidation. Consolidation of several loads in one trip. Partial loads can be found in the same way as regular full truck loads. On any load board, while searching for loads, we can choose from three options: full, partial, or both. Consolidating partial loads requires high professionalism and it has the potential to increase your earnings per mile, but it can also lead to serious scheduling difficulties. Here are a few rules to keep in mind. The order of loading and unloading is important. Well, if we're talking about flatbeds, it's easier. You can load and unload the cargo from either side of the trailer and it doesn't affect anything as long as the lengths and the widths of the cargo is within acceptable limits. However, in the case of dry vans, reefers, box trucks, the first load that has been loaded into the trailer must be unloaded last, because no one will bother unloading the whole trailer, taking the part they need and then loading the rest of the product back. Therefore, the longest load should be loaded first, so that it can be unloaded last. This will give you the opportunity to pick up and unload other cargo along the way. You have to keep a very close eye on the driver's work schedule. A large number of pickups and drop-offs can greatly affect ELD hours. If pickup and delivery appointments don't combine well, you could lose an extra day due to this partial load consolidation. It's important to count not only the weight but also the space the load takes up. If all the goods are on pallets, it's a little easier. You will know how many pallets fit in your driver's trailer and can estimate how much more you can fit in for extra loading. If you're loading a flatbed, well, it takes skill. After all, the product can be loaded and secured in many different ways. Here you have to work closely with the driver, and everything will depend on your teamwork and ingenuity. Okay, let's recap everything we learned so far. In order to make informed load decisions and build route plans, we can utilize multiple tools available to us. Check-in average rates, market trends, load-to-truck ratios. All of this will give us a general idea of what direction to bring the highest profit to our truck. After analyzing the market, we log into our load board and start looking at the real picture. How much are they really paying for the lanes we're looking for? If you find a hot load and your driver is close enough to make it to the pickup, request a high rate. If you're in a bad zone, use the double load technique. Book a high-paying load in another zone and then use any available load to bring the truck closer to that load. After a successful delivery of a good load, be sure to ask the broker about dedicated lane opportunities. And to maximize the profitability of the truck, look for opportunities to consolidate multiple partial loads. Here we are in a lesson on negotiations. We already studied the mechanics of the job, how to look for freight, how to fill out paperwork, how to analyze the market. We even touched a little bit on the topic of communication with a broker in the third module when we discussed how to book a load. However, the topic of negotiations was neglected until now. Now it's time to understand it thoroughly. Negotiation is one of the main skills of a professional dispatcher. After all, you'll have to negotiate not only with the broker for the price of the load, but also with the driver, with the owners and managers of the transportation company, or with the manager of the facility when you need to move the appointment or ask to unload your truck faster. Negotiations will have to be made with a broker about the load price, detention, or any additional surcharges in case of unforeseen circumstances. In some cases, with a factoring company, with insurance, with a repair service, anything can happen. I once negotiated with a girl who was the manager of the Central Florida Zoo. My driver was carrying a variety of food for the animals and the zoo was refusing to accept it. My next load was burning and I needed the driver to unload immediately. I couldn't reach an agreement with the zoo at the time, so I just called around to various places nearby and asked them to unload the goods. We successfully unloaded at one of the nearby farms after discussing it with the owner in advance and made it in time for the next load. Of course, this is a rather extreme example and such things are not part of the dispatcher's job description, but still, sometimes you have to go to the extreme measures if you want to help your carrier and provide top-class service. Let's talk about the structure of negotiations. The goal of any negotiation is to reach an agreement, in essence, to come to a compromise. When you talk to a broker about a shipment and ask for $1,100 and his first offer was $900, you're likely to come to a compromise and agree on $1,000. But this will only be possible if the broker is really willing to pay $1,000 and your carrier agrees to that. First, let's look at the general principles of negotiation from books and textbooks and put each one in the context of a dispatcher's negotiation with a broker. First, preparation. Before you start negotiating, it's worth gathering full information about the load. Make sure you've listened and written down all the load details and then identify the strengths and weaknesses of the broker for this negotiation. Will the driver have to drive at night? Do you have to drive through bad weather conditions or go through mountain roads? Will the truck lose extra time due to inconvenient pickup or unloading times? Are there any extra unloading points? Does the driver need to be involved in the unloading process? I don't know, is the load highly valuable or easily spoiled? All of these little details will be provided by the broker and can play a key role in setting a price for the shipment. In fact, this idea brings us back to where we started this module, market analysis. If you know the supply and demand for transportation service, if you prepare in advance and do market research, it will be very easy for you to understand your negotiating power and your strengths. Due to the fact that many dispatchers do not analyze and look at the freight market blindly without any preparation, many brokers often don't post prices for their loads. They sit back and wait, hoping that someone will agree to a very low price. Know your strengths, be prepared to negotiate, be attentive to small details of the shipment, and you will succeed. Now for the strategy. The first offer is usually the most important, because it becomes the benchmark against which all subsequent offers will be evaluated and compared. Suppose you call a broker. According to your calculations and analysis, you can get up to $2,500 for this load, but your minimum target is $2,200. The broker picks up the phone, gives you load information, and says he's paying $1,500. The difference is huge. Most dispatchers get lost at this point. They sense right away that they won't get the price they want and lower their bar. Some stop negotiating at all and hung up. Yeah, this is a big mistake from the dispatcher side, but it happens because the first offer during the negotiations becomes the benchmark. Psychologically, it sets the price level at which the negotiation will proceed. In such a situation, the dispatcher should not get lost. You should move according to the plan and bargain at your own level. In this case, it's $2,200 to $2,500. If I were a dispatcher, I would respond to the broker's price this way. I would say, actually, I was expecting to be at $2,500. How close can you get to my price range so we can find common ground? You see, I mentioned my desired price, but also indicated that I was willing to bargain. I completely disregarded the broker's low price and took the negotiation in my hands. And yes, it's likely that the broker was calling a low price because he actually has a low-paying load on his hands and he won't be able to give the price we're asking. On the other hand, he may have enough money. He's just trying to bait an inexperienced dispatcher. In this industry, you will never get exactly what you ask for. That's very important to think about. You will never get the price you called first. The broker will always haggle. So what do? That's right, we always start with a price that's higher than what we want. So if I know I need to make another $1,500 on the last load to meet my weekly plan, I'm going to sit there and call all the eligible loads and ask for $2,000. And even if I call the broker and he offers me $1,500 right away, I will still tell him first thing that my original goal is $2,000, and I'll try to get at least another $100 to $200 out of him. Why am I so sure of this? Because brokers know this golden rule too, and they will never give you their best price on the first offer. Hold your strengths for the right time. It's like having an ace up your sleeve. You have to wait for the right hand before you take it out. Here's an example. You call on a load that picks up extremely close to your truck's current location. The broker, while giving you the information, says that it needs to be picked up within the next 2 hours and asks you if you can make it on time. Many dispatchers will immediately blurt out and just say, yes, my driver is only 2 blocks away. He can be there within 15 minutes. They think that this way they will increase the broker's interest in them. But in fact, all the broker will hear is, yes, my truck is very close to this place. It's perfect load for me. I really want it. Please give it to me. You see, that's not exactly what we would like to portray, especially since there is a round of price negotiations ahead. An experienced dispatcher in this situation will simply say, yes, we can pick up the load within 2 hours. And he will take his ace out of the sleeve later, at the most profitable moment. For example, by saying, my target for this load is $2,000 and I can't book it any lower. If you can make it work for me, my truck will be at the pickup in the next 15 minutes. Bingo! We asked for the price we were interested in, and in return we offered speed and the assurance that we wouldn't be late. The odds of success just multiplied, even though the starting point didn't change in any way. The truck, either way, could get to the pickup in 15 minutes. Also, be prepared to stop the negotiation if the other side is clearly stuck in their position and has no plans to move. In that case, clearly express your reluctance to continue negotiating on their terms and make them wonder if you will ever come back. If they're on the hook for a deal and have more money in the load that they're claiming, they will feel the pressure to agree to your terms and will give you a call back with a better offer. Here are some more negotiating golden rules that we use in our company. First, if you're in a high demand area, negotiate a price above market average. If you're in a low demand zone, try to get as close to the market average as possible. If you see that the broker doesn't have much time left to sell the shipment, bargain around 50% above the offered price and at least 20% above your desired price. Always take into account what's wrong with the load: toll roads, weather, mountains, night driving, etc. Pickup and delivery appointments play an important role in pricing. If the driver has to lose an extra day, well, this should be reflected in the rate. Always start with a bid that's at least 10 to 20% higher than the desired price. When a broker says he doesn't have more money on the load, he's lying. He wouldn't be working if he didn't profit from it. If your truck is far from key market areas and you see a hot load nearby, you can negotiate up to 100% price increase. If the broker refuses to put the detention policy in writing, he knows it will take a long time to load. Factor that time into your rate. If the broker says he needs to talk to the customer before making a decision, he's lying. He's just looking for a cheaper truck. If the broker says the load may be cancelled, it most likely will be. Start looking for a new load right away to mitigate the risk. And finally, everything is negotiable. You can negotiate on prices, delivery appointments, sometimes even weight of the load. It all depends on your luck and your ability to negotiate. And now let's reinforce this knowledge. Let's look at a couple of negotiation examples. I asked one of my employees to play the role of a broker, and we played out a couple of possible conversations. I will provide a brief analysis after each example.
Hi, this is Sam with CW Logistics. How can I help you?
Hi, this is Dimitri with Dnipro Logistics. I'm calling on your posted reefer load from Atlanta, Georgia to Louisville, Kentucky for today.
Yes, this one is still available. Picks up today in Atlanta anytime between 9 a.m. and 2 p.m. Delivers tomorrow in Louisville at 9 a.m. 15,000 pounds of fresh salad greens, 45 degrees on the reefer, and I got $1,200 on this one.
Sounds good, but I'm looking for 1,600 for Louisville. Can you make it work?
Honestly, I already covered two of these for 1,200 and I got this one left. I can do 1,300 for you.
Can you meet me at least at 1,500?
Let me put you on a quick hold. I'll have to check with my boss. Hey man, my boss said that 1,350 will be the best we can do.
Okay, let's do 1,400 and I can get the truck there in an hour.
Alright, let's go for 1,400. What's your MC number?
This situation was very typical. A simple, standard load, one pickup, one delivery. Morning pickup time, morning delivery time. Not heavy, not low temperature, absolutely nothing bad about this load. The route is about 420 miles, perfect for a day's load. Broker started at 1,200, the dispatcher started at 1,600. Early in the conversation, the broker reinforced his position by saying that he had already sold several of the same loads for 1,200. However, that didn't stop the dispatcher. He knew that the market price was somewhere around $1,300 to $1,500. The broker offered $1,350. At this point, the dispatcher could have just agreed, but he went a bit further and got that extra $50 for a final rate of $1,400. Great, simple negotiation. If there was a test book for dispatchers, this conversation would be in it.
England Logistics, Jeremy speaking. What can I do for you?
Hi Jeremy, this is Dimitri with Dnipro Logistics. Calling regarding your load from Los Angeles, California to Portland, Oregon for Wednesday.
What's the load posting number?
The posting number is 12567.
This one picks up in Riverside, California on Wednesday at 11 a.m. and delivers on Friday at 9 p.m. 42,500 pounds of canned food and pallets, and we are paying $4,000.
You said pickup in Riverside? What's the zip code?
Zip code is 92501.
Okay, thank you. Can we deliver this on Friday morning?
Unfortunately not. It's a set appointment. They will not be able to unload you at any earlier.
Okay, we can make it work, but I will need to be closer to 6,000.
I won't be able to pay that. The best I can do is 4,300.
Sir, the rate you're offering for this load is absolutely fine, but the delivery is late at night on Friday. You know that I will not be able to find another load so late and might get stuck in Portland for the whole weekend. I can go down to 5,500, but anything less than that won't make any sense for me.
I understand that, but unfortunately I don't have that much money on the load. I could probably go up to 4,500, but that's my maximum.
Alright, no problem. I think I will pass on this one and explore other options. I will give you another call later if it's meant to be.
Sounds good, man. Have a good day.
Let's look at this conversation in detail. The first thing the broker asked was a load posting number. At the big brokerage companies, all the loads posted are assigned a unique number. That makes it easier for them to find the load in their system. This number, if available, can be found in the post information on the load board. The load was posted as Los Angeles to Portland, but when the broker started giving the information, he said that the pickup city was Riverside, California. This is standard practice with brokers. When a load is picking up in a small town near a major metropolitan area, brokers will post the load with a different city. All the dispatcher has to do is ask for the zip code of the city and type it into Google Maps. Then quickly calculate the correct number of miles. Going forward, so Riverside to Portland distance is about 1,000 miles. As we already know, this is the ideal distance for a 2-day load. By picking it up on a Wednesday morning, the driver could deliver it on Friday morning and have time to pick up another load on Friday. But in this situation, the shipment cannot be delivered until 9 p.m. The dispatcher specifically asked if it was possible to deliver in the morning. Since there is no such possibility, it puts the dispatcher in a difficult position. It's unlikely that he'll find another load on Friday night, and he'll have to risk looking for a load that picks up on the weekend. Depending on the dispatcher's goals and objectives, he could have given up on the load right away or started negotiating for a higher price. In this case, the dispatcher thought it was worth it to try to get a great price and immediately asked for $6,000, stipulating that his truck would not just lose a whole day but could get stuck for the whole weekend. The broker was willing to pay extra, but not at the level the dispatcher wanted. The dispatcher's minimum offer was $5,500 and the broker's maximum offer was $4,500. Because there was too much difference, the dispatcher decided to stop negotiating. He said openly and honestly that he wanted to look at other options. The dispatcher may well expect a call back from the broker with a new higher offer. After all, the broker already knows that he can get that truck for his not so comfortable load if only he can get to the right price level. A professional and informed decision on the part of the dispatcher. Knowing the Los Angeles to Portland lane, the dispatcher knows that demand exceeds supply. While the dispatcher still has plenty of load options, for the broker his truck may have been his last chance. Knowing when to stop the conversation is an important skill. If the broker calls back, the dispatcher's negotiating power will be very high. Hi, this is Dimitri with Dnipro Logistics. Could you give me some information about your flatbed load from St. Louis, Missouri to Mobile, Alabama for today?
Yes, sir. Pick up today in St. Louis at any time, first come first served before 5 p.m. It needs to be delivered at any time tomorrow. The facility is open from 8 a.m. till 8 p.m. It's 35,000 pounds of car parts, requires a 4-feet tarp.
Great, we can do that for $2,500.
That's fine. What's your MC number?
My MC is 76504.
Yeah, I don't think I can put you on this low. We're not set up and I need a reliable carrier on this one. This is an important load for my customer.
Sir, you're looking for a reliable carrier. You got one right here. Our company is over a year old and I can provide references of our partner brokers with whom we've been working closely for months without a single issue. My driver has been working with a flatbed for over 10 years. He's unloaded now and ready to start moving at any time. Give me a chance on this one and you'll have another reliable carrier in your contact list.
Alright Dmitry, you sound like a serious guy. I'll take a risk on this one. Don't make me regret it. Give me your email address so I can send you a setup packet.
Another typical situation. The broker has an important load on his hands and he has no right to screw up. He's probably already had problems with this shipper and if he makes another mistake, it could result in the loss of the customer. When he finished giving information about the shipment, the broker didn't name his rate, so the dispatcher took the initiative and named his desired price, $2,400. The broker, for whom making money was not a priority at the moment, immediately agreed. It was more important for him to give the load to a responsible carrier than to make an extra couple $100. He immediately checked the MC number of the carrier in his database, saw that he hadn't worked with the company before, and was about to give up. The dispatcher, on his part, realized that this was the perfect load for him and began to emphasize the professionalism of his company, his driver, and himself. In this case, the broker was convinced. It doesn't happen every time, but you should definitely try. Good negotiation goes a long way.